Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across
baby Taco Tuesday, but I don't have any tacos. Dang it. I mean, you know, guys, well, I guess no day is perfect. Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and of course, around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the interwebs. Yes, the interwebs. That's where you'll find at michaeldukeshow.com the audio-only live stream. The links to our social media sites where we love to simulcast the radio show every morning. And, of course, links to our podcast, which is available wherever podcasts are found. CastBox, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, CastBox, and, of course, Spotify. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. How are you doing? Are you ready for it? It is Tuesday. Tuesday morning. And apparently, I'm a little too full of vim and vigor for some of you out there this morning. I apologize. I'll turn it down just a little bit. Let me just turn it back No, it's Tuesday. It's time to go. We are only let me do the math here. We are only 19 days away from Christmas. 19 days away from Christmas. And I hope you got all your Christmas shopping done. I hope you got all your Christmas shopping done and you're ready to, because, you don't want to wait to the last minute. You don't want to wait to the last. I mean, I do have happy memories of going out. I remember my dad taking my brother and I out on Christmas Eve to do some shopping for, my mom and stuff like that. I do remember that. And I remember that was a tradition for, I don't know, my dad's in the chat room. Maybe he could tell me, but it was at least a handful of years. He would take my brother and I out and we would go shopping on Christmas Eve for mom. I just can't imagine that now, quite honestly. I can't imagine wanting to go out on Christmas Eve and do some shopping. I mean, even throughout the day, you know what I mean? Just because, what a hot mess. I want to be home for Christmas Eve, like the whole day. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be with the fam and hang out. I want to have all those presents wrapped and ready to go under the tree or hidden in the closet or whatever you're doing with your Christmas presents. I want to have all that stuff ready and done so that by Christmas Eve, I can do nothing but absorb, just soak myself in Christmas music, maybe a little homemade eggnog, just hanging out, watching It's a Wonderful Life, or Elf, or something else that just, I just want to get it done. So you get 19 days. Well, that's Christmas Day. So you got 18 days till Christmas Eve. So really, you get 17 days, because if you want to be done the day before Christmas Eve, you want to, what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. And so you don't have much time, my friends. You don't have much time. 17 days before your shopping should be absolutely completely finished. Boom, done, just like that. 17 days. And of course, that's a good reminder. That's a good reminder that I will be on vacation starting, well, I guess it'll be 2 weeks from Thursday. It'll be my first day of vacation. My first day of vacation starting 2 weeks from Thursday. And I will be on vacation for 10 days, 11 days, 12 days. I won't be coming back until the 2nd of January. And so that'll be good. So just a headline, just a reminder, just keeping you all informed as to what's going on. Let me get on to today's topic, today's stuff. So it is Tuesday, which means that we're going to get into the deep dive. Yep, it's the deep dive today. We're going to be joined by Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, who is going to come on board and do the weekly top 3 with us, including this week's top 3 items or topics. We're going to talk about the missing question on all the K-12 closures. All the K-12 closures that are going on. Anchorage is the big headline, $68 million in shortfalls, and we're shocked. This is my shocked face, I tell you, that that we've had to close down. What do you mean we're $68 million in the hole? We've got to close schools. So the missing question on K-12 closures. The second one is going to be the ADN's, the Anchorage Daily News's idea of compromise. There's air quotes there. Compromise. And then the Alaska Senate's ideas on spending. So those are going to be the weekly top 3 items. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be rip-roaring good time. That's going to be with Brad Keithley, who's going to be joining us in just a few. Then in hour 2, we'll start off the hour with a little bit of a recap of some of the things that Brad hit us with, and maybe we'll dive a little deeper into that with a few phone calls from you. And then at the bottom of the hour, Chris Story, the man from Homer, is going to come in and join us and give us a full rundown of, his thoughts on life and things and pottery and whatever else he decides to share with us. He is our PMA guru, and he's going to come in and give us a little bit of a life coaching lesson in hour 2. So that's it, baby. That's the rundown for today's show. Then we'll finish up with whatever we feel like, which, at this point, I don't know. We could be rehashing some things from Chris or from Brad, or we could just be talking about the new season of Yellowstone, which I haven't seen yet. So don't give me any spoilers in the chat room, you guys. Man, these guys in the chat room, they are out of control today. All right. Where do we start? Oh, I guess we start here. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Alaska House. Got to tell you that I am, I guess, pleasantly surprised. Because right now, finally, there was a press release from the House Majority Coalition, which is still in place, right, until the new House organizes. The old majority, the bipartisan majority, led by Louise Stutes, puppeted by Bryce Edgman. You know what I mean? That's still in control. Well, they hadn't heard anything from him since, I think, September or something. August, September was the last time that they had put out any kind of anything. And so they put out a memo, and it made it pretty clear of one thing. Louise Stutes is still firmly entrenched in the coalition majority camp. And she is... because it was always a question, right? Because the balance right now is 21-19. Republicans versus everybody else. There's 21 Republicans. And of course, the question was, and I don't know why it was a question. The question was, would Louise Stutes stay, would she stay with her Republic? Really? I mean, you thought this was a question? But nope, she's confirmed it. Our coalition, she writes, has proven its unwavering support for essential services, protecting our permanent fund and savings accounts, and providing sustainable dividends. Alaskans expect us to be ready to work in January and to get the job done on time. We look forward to working across the aisle with our colleagues in the House and the Senate, as well as with the administration on bipartisan solutions to make that happen. Yes, the word salad is real. So she's already declared her line in the sand there. And so now effectively the House is split 20-20. The headline in the ADN reads this morning, stalemate. Quote, stalemate. Prepare to wait weeks or even months before a majority forms in the Alaska House. And it goes on to talk a little bit about what's happening in the legislature. This is an article from Nat Hers, which is actually a pretty damn good article. I always like Nat. I don't always agree with him, but he's a pretty straight shooter. But he goes into it and he interviews a lot of different folks in here. Laddie Shaw, Pat Katak, Andy Josephson, and he just kind of goes through the list and goes through the math of what's happening. That Louise Stutes is going, obviously tipping over into the other side. So now we have 20-20. This independent, right down the road split. And then he talked to a few of the legislators about who might go over to the other side. Which one of these legislators might go over to the coalition majority? And I got to be honest, pleasantly surprised that Will Stapp, who is the newly elected Republican from North Pole, who I anticipated would immediately jump on the coalition bandwagon, said, I haven't seen or heard anything that would make me think that it's in the best interest of the interior or my town or community to join the new coalition. Good for you, Will. I hope you stick with your Republican allies. I hope you do. I mean, that's my prayer for you, my friend. Jesse Sumner, the newly elected Republican from Wasilla, said he is, quote unquote, willing to listen to offers from Democrats or independents, but he remains skeptical of joining a coalition without other conservatives alongside him. He said, I don't think that an organization of 19 Democrats and independents, Stutes and me, is going to be in the best interest of the state. They'd run circles around me. And that really leaves only two options on the table. Ketchikan Representative Dan Ortiz and Uktaavik Rep Josiah Patkatak. Now, Patkatak is probably the more likely, although Dan Ortiz just narrowly won a re-election campaign over a Republican last month. So maybe he's feeling a little pressure to even out the keel, so to speak, and not just serve Democratic interests down there in Ketchikan. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. We're going to have to watch it. But that's a story. That's one of the stories that I wanted to get to, and we're going to continue the discussion here in a minute. But we got to take a break because Brad Keithley is about to join us. So let's go do that, shall we? Yeah. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget to come out and join us on Facebook or YouTube, facebook.com/Michael Dukes Show or youtube.com @Michael Dukes Show. youtube.com/@Michael Dukes Show. It's the new thing on YouTube. They got a new handle thing. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes on Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Well, I got yakety yak in there, didn't I? Just I usually try to go to break a little early when I got Brad on because we have so much stuff to talk about, and it didn't work. I want to say thank you to. We're going to do that when we get back on the air. Don't forget. Don't let me forget. Don't let me forget to do that. Let's go over here and see what Brad Keithley has to say this morning on the program. Good morning, my friend. How is you? How are you doing?
Mike,
what's happening?
I'm doing great, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing good. Boy, you are loud and proud this morning. Let me drag you back down to the basement with me here. See what you're at. So did you get all your Christmas shopping done, Brad? That's what I want to know. That's my big question of the day. You only got 17 days. Did you get it all done?
Well, I've got it all in the order form on Amazon. So it's just a question of pushing the button on Amazon.
Brad really you make it tough, don't you? I got to get it all. I got that cart. I've been building that cart for 3 weeks, and then I push the buy button, and it all comes at once. The question is, do you have it all sent to you and wrap it, or do you send it to different individuals through Amazon? That's my question.
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, it's all directed to me right now, but maybe I could send it to just,
Oh, you could send it all. They put them in pretty gift bags. They do all that stuff. I did that one year.
Right?
I had half a dozen people that I had to send stuff to outside. And so I just went on Amazon and I said, this is a gift. Here's their address. This is a gift. Here's their address. And they put it in a little fabric bag and everything. I mean, it could cost you $3 or $4, but man, it costs you that much just in gas to drive across town to have somebody else wrap it.
You may have just saved me hours. I mean, you may have just saved me a huge amount of time here.
I'll be here all week. I'm only here to help.
Well, I found out something else. I found out when we're taking Christmas break by listening to you this
morning.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yes, I should be.
It's all sorts of newsy today.
I probably should tell you and Story and Willie Waffle and everything else that, yes, I'm on. It's going to be beautiful. I've done this every year for, gosh, I don't know. I think it's going on 12 years now. I've been doing it. I discovered it, I don't know, back when I was in Fairbanks, and I discovered that there is absolutely nothing happening. I mean, news-wise, there is nothing happening from Christmas to New Year's. I mean, unless they had like thermonuclear war, nothing would be on the radar for, between Christmas and New Year's. And of course, in the advertising game, working in radio, there is absolutely nothing happening between Christmas and New Year's. Why am I here? Right?
I discovered that as well, Michael, when you had me sit in for you one year while you were on Christmas break, that there was nothing going on. I was making stuff up to try to get through the morning.
You do. You totally have to kind of make, because the news, there's just nothing worth talking about and we could just do 10 days worth of, personal interest, hobbies, movies, whatever. But that's just too much work. I'm going to go to vacation. I'm just going to go vacation. I'm going to sleep in, eat too much food, drink beer, whiskey, hang out, watch movies. That sounds like a fantastic time, doesn't it?
Are you staying home, or are you wandering down to Homer, or are you wandering outside?
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I'm staying home. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I went to Homer one time this last year, and I had to motivate myself to get out of here to go do that. This last 18 months has just been brutal. I would much rather stay home than do anything else at this point. Staycation. It's my staycation. So anyway, borough assemblies have stuff going on, says Barbara. Yeah, but I don't care about that at this point. When I reach this point of the year, after all the stuff that's going on, I got to be honest with you. My give a crap meter is pretty much maxed out at that point. I just need to unwind the brain pan for a while. So that's what we do. Maybe that's a little selfish, but I don't know. I give 350 days a year. I figure that the other 15 days, it can take care of itself at the end of the year. So Sandy says
And are you going to be news free that last week before you go, or the part of the week before you go on vacation? That's what
Oh
you did
yeah,
last week.
The Monday through Wednesday, we're gonna do probably no headlines. It'll probably just be fun, reminiscent Christmas stories, recipes. I don't know. We'll just have a good time. Maybe that Tuesday, maybe Brad, you can share Christmas memories with us. It'll be the top 3 Christmas memories or stories or recipes or something else. I mean, because by that point, I'm going to want to unwind. I do need to worry about the Burrow shenanigans. I know I didn't mean it that way. What I meant was oh, my give a poop button is broken. All right, here we go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's go.
Remember, you have a pitch.
Okay, we're jumping back into it now with Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Before we do, though, I have to remind you that our friends at Satellite West are bringing you the program today. And in fact, oh, baby, you're going to want to jump on to michaeldukeshow.com tomorrow, maybe later today, early tomorrow, because Satellite West has been kind enough to, we're calling it the 5 days of Christmas. Because we are going to start giving away next Thursday a bivvy stick every day for 5 days. Bivvy stick, of course, I had it in my pocket, but I left it on the counter downstairs. Bivvy stick is the little device that pairs with your cell phone that allows you to remain in contact no matter where you are. It turns your cell phone into a satellite communicator. You could send texts. You can do things with Group Track. There's so many different things you can do. Well, they're going to be giving away a bivvy stick a day starting a week from Thursday. It'll be Thursday, the 22nd. We'll be giving away a bivvy stick every day, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And but you're going to have to go sign up to win. And that sign up will be available on the website later today or first thing in the morning for sure. But that is special thanks to our friends at Satellite West who've been sponsoring the program. So the 5 days of Christmas brought to you by Satellite West. And it'll be fun. Brad Keithley joins us here in the program. Brad, thank you for your patience. I know I got a little verbose there in the first segment, and we're ready to do it. We got to jump right into this because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. First and foremost on the weekly top 3, number 1 is this idea that's somehow, some way. We've got to, talk about these K-12 closures, but everybody's missing one thing. And what is the one thing, Brad? Let's.
Well, the one thing is how we're going to pay for them. I mean, you read all these articles about how horrible it would be to close this school or how horrible it would be to shift this program. The article I sent you the link on is to shift a certain program out of One Eagle River School to another, and how horrible and how bad the consequences are of doing that. But the articles never go into how are we going to pay for all of this additional K through 12 spending that the legislature is talking about maintaining in order to avoid these consequences. The question I would like the reporters to ask, I think, would be a relevant question to the people they're talking to the mothers, to the families, to the teachers, to the superintendents, to everybody is, are you willing to pay taxes to maintain the schools? Are you willing to pay taxes in order to increase revenues to maintain these programs? And see what the answers are. I mean, now everybody, a lot of these are top 20% schools. So a lot of people are thinking, well, we're just gonna have to take a little bit more in PFD cuts, or take some in PFD cuts in order to maintain these programs. That's fine by me. I'm the top 20%. It'll affect, maybe a cup of coffee from Starbucks a day. I can afford to do that. But as we've talked on the program, that hits middle and lower income Alaska families disproportionately large. So right. If we're going to maintain these programs equitably, if we're going to pay for these programs equitably, we should be paying taxes for them. Everybody should be chipping in to maintain the programs, not just shift the cost of middle and lower income Alaska families. And I'd like to see the answers of these people who are arguing for maintaining these programs and maintaining the schools when they're asked, are you willing to pay taxes for it? I think we get some interesting answers. Even if we got yeses, I think that would be helpful. I mean, it would tell us that at least some segment of the population are willing to pay an equitable share of the costs of maintaining schools. But I'm going to guess that a lot of these people are going to say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. We've got PFDs. We ought to be using the PFD money. In other words, we ought to be shifting the burden to middle and lower income Alaska families to pay for all this. I don't want to pay for it. But these articles, article after article after article after article talks about the need, the demand, the reason for additional spending. And then those same articles, article after article after article after article, fail to talk about how we're going to pay for it and where the money is coming from. That's an issue that we should be discussing at the same time as we're talking about increasing spending.
How much of this, Brad, do you think comes from the fact that, people have forgotten the difference between what's nice to have and what's a must have? I mean, the Constitution mandates education, but it doesn't mandate, a certain level of education. It doesn't say it's all got to be Cadillac or gold plated, or you should only have to go a quarter mile to your local school instead of 10 miles to your local school. I mean, there's a lot of questions in there, and it doesn't even, of course, it doesn't talk at all about mismanagement of funds. They act like this, especially in the Anchorage area. They act like this is a shock. I tell you, that we're 68 million. Oh my God, where did this come from? They've been talking about this for 5 or 6 years, but they just keep sweeping it under the rug. And now it's crisis and crunch time.
Well, Michael, I think it's because we never confront costs. I mean, it's always about, we need this, we need that, we need to spend more on this, we need to spend more on that. But we never ask people, are you willing to pay for it? Are you willing to pay for it out of your pocket in terms of an income tax or, at a minimum, a sales tax, some sort of more equitable tax than PFD cuts? We never asked them if they're willing to pay for it. If that was on the table, if at the time you said, I want more spending because I don't want to close this program, or I want more spending because I don't want to add to the student count, the classroom count for teachers. I want more spending. If at the same time you said that, you had to answer the question, and how do you want to pay? How are you going to pay for it? Are you willing to pay taxes for it? I think there would be a much different dynamic going on. But people think it's a free good. I mean, the legislature, if anything, has conditioned them to think, oh, well, it'll be free good. We'll just take it more out of PFDs. We'll just shift the cost of middle and lower income Alaska families. You won't have to pay for it. Top 20% families, you won't have to pay for it. Just keep demanding all you want because you're never going to have to pay for it. And they never, Alaskans in these, at least in these interviews, but Alaskans also elsewhere, never have to make that cost benefit analysis. If they did, if the question about taxes was asked, then they might say, oh, well, what about mismanagement, or what about too much administration, or what about more consolidation, or what about maybe we could do it this way that would be less costly. If the balance was put in the questions, and if the balance was put to Alaskans that, yes, you want more, but you're going to have to pay for it, and are you willing to pay for it? You top 20% families, are you willing to pay for it? I think the discussion would be a lot different.
Well, and yesterday we had a conversation with Rob Myers, who talked about this, and he said, look at what we've done, even in just the last 20 years. We started out in the middle of the pack educationally as far as aptitude and achievement scores. And we've slowly, it's been a downward slope right into the bottom. Yet at the other side, there's an inverse increase into the expenditure side. So we're spending more today than we ever have for worse results. And Chris is right. Chris on Twitch says, the public schools have resisted any long, overdue reforms. They won't even talk about that. That's insanity. They won't even talk about it.
Well, that's because it's always the solution is always throw more money at it. That's because they think if it gets bad enough, we'll just ask for more money. People will get outraged. We'll talk about closing schools, or we'll talk about, increasing class size, or we'll talk about transferring programs, and people will say, oh no, don't do that. Just throw more money at it. And we've conditioned people to think it's a free good to throw more money at it because the money will come from somebody else. The money will come from middle and lower income, at least in the 20 teens. It came from future Alaska families. It came from savings that would have benefited future Alaska families. So we were just taxing future Alaska families to pay for it. Now we're taxing current Alaska families, but they found a way to push it to middle and lower income Alaska families, so the top 20% don't have to pay for it. And people just think it's a free good. So they don't demand accountability. They don't say, "Oh my gosh, scores are going down or performance is going down, so we need to throw more money at it. That's the solution. We need to throw more." They don't balance that by saying, "Well, we can't throw more money because I would have to pay for it then, and I don't want to pay for it. So we need to find accountability in some other way." The free good, the thought that it's a free good has just destroyed, I think, the balance that otherwise would occur if people thought they had to pay for this.
One final thought for me on this. I remember when I was a kid, I used to have to be bused I lived 14 miles away from the nearest school, right? 14 miles from the nearest school. And these folks
it was uphill both ways, right?
Uphill both ways in the snow.
Walk
in the snow year round, barefoot, but the reaction from a lot of these people in Anchorage with, "Oh, we don't want to close our local school. It's been there for so long and it's so close. And I'd have to go halfway across town. I'd have to go like 3 miles to and it's just, it's like hashtag first world problems. I mean, come on. Yes. So you might have to close down one school and consolidate at another school. It's not the end of the world. It's crazy.
But they don't think they have to pay for it, Michael. They don't think they have to. They think if they complain enough, if they are loud enough, if they talk long enough about it, money will pour in. The legislature will pour in more money, and they won't have to pay for it because it'll just come magically from someplace else. That's how we've conditioned people to think about that. And so yeah, if it's a free good, heck no, I don't want to close this school. If it's a free good, I just want money to pour in and save me from having to worry about getting Johnny across town or having to put Johnny on a bus in the morning. If it's balanced with, and how are you going to pay for it? Are you willing to pay taxes? Are you willing to pay an income tax? Are you willing to pay a flat tax? Are you willing? If people had to think about, "Oh my gosh, I have to pay for this stuff," that is an entirely different balance than what we've walked ourselves into over the past decade.
Okay, so that's number 2, Brad, or that's number 1. Brad, number 2 is the ADN's idea of compromise. The ADN's, give us a tease for this before we go to break.
ADN wrote an editorial over the weekend. The ADN editorial board wrote an editorial over the weekend talking about what they want to see in Dunleavy's second term and talking about how they think Dunleavy should approach this. And they were all about compromise and doing things better and lowering the rhetoric and all that sort of stuff. But there's one phrase in this editorial that shows the ADN really doesn't believe that. They believe the other side ought to compromise and they believe the other side ought to lower the rhetoric. But them, nah, they ought to. They're going to continue to push and continue to use rhetoric for what they think is the right thing. So we're going to talk about that.
Wait, one rule for thee and another for me. Where have we heard that before? All right, Brad Keithley is our guest. Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We're in the weekly top 3. We're going to continue in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Dukes Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the break with Brad. I cannot find a where to put this that I really like. Let me put this over here, put this over here. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to make all that work. Okay. Good morning. Thanks for coming in and appreciate to Brad for going over the weekly top 3. Brad, I think it is all summed up very nicely by Brian in the chat room, who says one thing: money is a hell of a drug. I mean, it's kind of I mean, that should be a T-shirt for Alaska, because that is exactly where we're at today. In pretty much everything, right?
Well, exactly, Michael. I mean, and it's money is a hell of a drug when it's coming from somebody else, right? It's as long as the state's going to provide it, I don't have to pay for it. I don't have to pay taxes for it. I don't have to worry about it myself. I can just, if I complain enough, the money will show up from someplace. In the 20 teens, it showed up from savings. In the 2020s, it's showing up from cuts in the PFD, taxes on middle and lower income Alaska families. Yeah, as long as it's a free good, heck yes, I want more of it. You want to cut my school? No, I want more free goods. I want you to keep my school open. I want more teachers. I want more programs. I want this and I want that. Until people personally have to balance, the cost of doing these additional programs to them, not just to somebody else, not just, theoretically to, some other group. Oh yeah, the money's got to come from someplace. Somebody has to pay it, but it's not me, so I don't care. As long as people can do that, we're not going to get these problems solved. We're just going to continue to see people pushing for more and more and more. And the news is just the media is just perpetuating this, because they're writing all these articles about I need this in Nunaka, I need this in Eagle River, I need this over here, and I need that over there. None of the articles are asking, and how are you going to pay for it? And how do you propose to pay for it? And are you willing, parents, willing to pay for it? I mean, back in the old days, back when people walked uphill both ways to school, yeah, we had local school districts back in the old days. The parents of that school district had to pay for it, right? Now we're not only spreading it across the state, we're spreading it, we're focusing it on middle and lower income Alaska families. So top 20% parents don't even have to think about it.
Well, wait, Brad, it's even worse than that, because what's happening today, of course, is they're getting all this filthy lucre from the state, and then the local communities are having to pay for it on top of that, because some of them are paying up to the cap already. They're not only are they getting the state money, they're then taxing the local community to the max of their tax caps and giving the maximum contribution to schools on top of that. I mean, that's the thing.
Yes, but to the max of their tax caps, Michael. I mean, the additional money, most of the money is coming from the state, and certainly the additional money that people are talking about now would come from the state. I mean, you listen to the superintendent of the Anchorage School District, and he says, "Oh, it's the BSA. We've got to increase the BSA." I mean, someone's educated him to say that, because he's brand new on the scene. He doesn't know where the money comes from, but everybody is focusing now on the state, on the BSA. BSA is the big problem. We've got to increase the BSA, or we've got to increase the foundation formula, or we got to increase this, or we got to increase that. Everybody's focused on the state. So yes, there are local contributions being made, and I don't want to downplay those, but the additional money that people are talking about to maintain their current schools, avoid consolidation, or maintain the current programs, they're all talking about that coming from the state. And they're all thinking it's going to come from PFD cuts and from middle and lower income Alaska families, that they're not going to have to pay it.
I wasn't trying to dilute your message. I'm just saying it's even worse than that, because on top of all the state stuff, they're taxing the local people to the max anyway. Terry says the Matsu delegation says to look for a BSA to increase to $1,000 per student. That would be almost a doubling of the BSA. I mean, that is insane. But that's what we're talking about right now.
And that's just sort of phase one. I mean, phase two, as we've talked about on the program before, phase two is going to be, and we need to have change the retirement so teachers stay. So we have additional, support for teachers. We need to have the defined benefit plans for the teachers, and then we're going to need to have other state employees folded into these defined benefit plans. So yeah, the BSA is part of it, but that's just sort of phase one. By the end of the session, we're going to see a huge education package that may be divided up in parts to sort of try to hide how big it is. But part of it's going to be BSA, part of it's going to be some grants to schools in need, and then there's going to be this other chunk out there to retain teachers and to help bring additional teachers on board and that's going to be, in the defined benefit plan. So it's going to be, we're going to see a lot of money. People talking about a lot of money in this session, and not talking about, are you willing to pay for it? It's going to be a lot of money, and we're going to be having middle and lower income Alaska families pay for it.
I want to talk about tax aversion on the next break, so we're going to come back to that. The Michael Duke Show, sense liberty-based, free thinking radio. Brad Keithley is our guest. Here we go. All right, Brad Keithley continues with us. Our guest today, the weekly top three. Brad is with Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. You can find him at ak4sb.com or on Facebook at Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We're on to the number 2 of the weekly top three. I don't know if we're going to get to all three. We're going to do our best here. Number 2 is the ADN's idea of compromise. There's air quotes, compromise. Brad, what do you mean? I mean, the ADN is, of course, non-biased and completely, just what do you mean compromise?
Well, the ADN wrote this editorial that talks about, Governor Dunleavy's entering his second term and talking about what they would like to see from him. Certainly, they don't want a repeat of 2019 where the governor tried to cut spending. That's been one of the ADN's big drives. Another big drive has been that the ADN wants to use the PFD. I mean, there's a number of editorials they've written over the last several years about, cutting back the PFD is the right thing to do. That's the right thing to pay for these programs. Never addressing the impact on middle and lower income Alaska families, the inequitable impact on middle and lower income Alaska families. Never addressing the impact on the overall Alaska economy. Just saying, we ought to be cutting back on the PFD. So in this editorial where they talk about, the governor ought to lower the rhetoric. The governor ought to, get along with the legislature. The governor ought to work for common solutions. The governor ought to be good in how he plays with the legislature. In the midst of all this, they then say they're talking about the last session, that gave lawmakers a get out of jail free card that allowed not only for an escape from hard budget choices, but also an irresponsibly large PFD and one of the largest spending packages in Alaska history. Irresponsibly large PFD. So in this editorial where they talk about, lowering the rhetoric, lowering the heat, working to compromise, working to find compromise on issues, they themselves then, reiterate and bring back their rhetoric of irresponsibly large PFDs. And keep in mind, the PFD last session didn't even get to the statutory level. It was about POMV. It was about at the POMV 50/50 level, counting the energy rebate that was included. So it didn't even get back up to the statutory level. But that, POMV 50/50 was an irresponsibly large PFD. So the ADN talks a good game, likes to think they talk a good game about, lowering the rhetoric and trying to work on compromise and trying to bring people together. But when it comes to their core issues, like cutting the PFD, there ain't no compromise going on. There ain't no lower rhetoric going on. And that's throughout the state.
Look, there should be no name calling or anything else, but that irresponsible PFD, that's a big deal. I mean, it's crazy.
And Michael, it isn't just the ADN. I mean, everybody talks about, I think everybody talks about lowering the rhetoric and talking about working together and but they all have their red lines, right? And when you get to one of their red lines, and there's 60 different red lines in the legislature because we got 60 different legislators. When you get to their red line, oh no, we can't do that. I mean, that's irresponsible to do that. You can't cross that red line. You can't do what you can't cut, that program because that's my program. And you just, and everybody, if we're actually going to get a compromise, I mean, and I'll go back to the fiscal policy working group. I think they did a great job of setting aside their red lines. And, you had Mike Schauer on there and he's talking about taxes. You have Jesse Keel on there and he's talking about, restoring the PFD. You've got people on there who drop their red lines and actually work toward a center. That was a good example of how to do this. But, stuff like the ADN and stuff like we're seeing now out of legislative orders, well, you can't do that. You've got to compromise. You got to come toward my position. But I'm sure as heck not giving up on my position. I'm sure as heck not giving up on my red lines. The ADN is just another example of that sort of attitude that we've got in the state. And we're never going to get, if they say irresponsibly large PFD, then other people are going to say statutory PFD, no change, none, period. And so you got these two extremes out there, both of which are saying you need to compromise, but you can't compromise on this issue because that's our issue. We're never going to get to a solution as long as we've got that. And for the ADN to spend an entire editorial going down that road and then undo themselves like that is just typifies how we've gotten to this particular point in the state.
Well, and in all fairness to the pro-statutory PFD crowd, they were willing to compromise. There was, like you said, Mike Shower, et cetera, the governor, they all said, okay, 50-50. We'll go to the 50-50 POMV. And then, of course, immediately the goal lines get moved again, and they said the other side says, okay, 75-25 sounds good. Well, wait, we just well, no, yeah, you came halfway to us, so now we want you to come halfway. It's mind-blowingly insane that this is kind of where we're at right now. But again, I have to laugh. Bottom of the editorial. This is the tag at the bottom of the editorial. Editorial opinions are by the editorial board, which welcomes responses. Board members are ADN President Ryan Binkley, publisher Andy Pennington, and opinion editor Tom Hewitt. The board operates independently from the ADN newsroom. Not if you read and the stories, they don't. They are actually, this is exactly the tone of every article that you read in the ADN about the PFD, about how irresponsible it is to give Alaskans a PFD when we're in a fiscal crisis that was created by the same legislators that are there. Oh my God. This is their idea of compromise is a lot different than ours.
Well, and the rhetoric up to that point is good. Let's lay down our weapons. Let's talk openly. Let's try to reach a solution. And then bam, but an irresponsibly large PFD, which was less than the statutory PFD, was about POMV 50-50. It's just we're going to get there unless people truly follow through on what they say they're doing. Unless the ADN, for an example, the ADN, unless the ADN really says, okay, let's talk about the PFD and stop using the irresponsibly large tag to get there.
Right. All right. Well, looks like we've made through that. Let's get on to number 3. Number 3 is the Senate majority. They have lots of spending ideas, but really no idea about where the revenues are going to come from to match all this glorious spending that they're talking about right now.
Yeah, this is really just, this is just sort of taking point one, which is we're not asking citizens who are talking about K through 12. We're not asking them to talk about, are they willing to pay for it? It's the same thing's true once you get to the legislature. There's an article in the Juneau Empire, which I thought was a good article, about a speech that Jesse Keel gave, the senator from Juneau, gave to the Juneau Chamber of Commerce, what he was looking for in this coming session. And he ran through the litany of increased K through 12 spending, defined benefits, both of which got applause from Juneau, because Juneau itself is also facing a school crunch, a school funding crunch. And of course, in the capital of state employees, talking about a defined benefit plan is going to get applause. So, he ran through the litany of all the spending plans, but there was no revenue. There was no discussion of the revenue to pay for it. It wasn't like, and are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay a tax in order to achieve this? Keel said, well, we're just not going to get to a tax this session. I just don't think that's in the cards. Oil taxes, maybe we'll talk about oil taxes, but maybe those work, maybe those don't. No other, and as I wrote about in my column last week in the Alaska Landmine, even oil taxes aren't enough to solve the deficits we're facing. No other discussion of revenues. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with additional PFD cuts. So it's, not only is the news media when they're talking to citizens being one-sided by not asking them if they're willing to pay for it. When you get to the legislature, we're having the same thing. They talk about spending on this, spending on that, spending on the other thing, but no discussion and no recognition that you have to increase revenues. You should be increasing revenues equitably in order if you're gonna have that additional spending.
Well, and it's not just, it's complicit. It's not just this unbalanced thing. It's the news media appears to have been complicit in this whole idea of, sure, let's talk about the gravy points and all the beauty of all this new spending, but no discussion on the effects of the economy, no discussion on the effects of the taking of the PFD, no discussion on any potential impacts of taxes now or in the future. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I mean, look, anybody who's looked at this impartially and with a rational eye realizes that if the rate of spending that they're talking about right now, the rate of spending that we've had in the past 3 or 4 years and where it's going in the future, the PFD is going to disappear. The PFD is going to be consumed completely. And then, because there has been no discussion on the revenues, there's been no discussions on how that balances out, the next thing will be, well, we can't possibly cut any. We're just going to have to talk about taxes now. It is coming. It is coming. And if we don't get ahead of it, we're going to get steamrolled.
Well, Michael, we are being taxed now. PFD cuts are taxes. What's happening is we have taxes that are on middle and lower income Alaska families through PFD cuts. What we're talking about, what will happen then is additional taxes, and then they'll say, well, it ought to be a sales tax. It ought to be something that is, doesn't touch your income. It ought to be a sales tax, which also is regressive and also tilts against middle and lower income Alaska families. So we need to face this now. We need to face that we're being taxed now. We're being taxed in a way that takes most from middle and lower income Alaska families. The top 20% are viewing government services as free goods because they're not having to pay for it. And so they want more and more and more of it. Their solution to every problem is more government spending, more spending on K through 12, more spending on energy, more spending on economic development, whatever that means, the 3 priorities that the Senate majority outlined. It's a free good. So yeah, let's just do more and more and more. To get this under control, I mean, and middle and lower income Alaska families are paying for it. So to get this under control, we need an equitable revenue source now so that people are facing up to the fact that they have to pay for these goods. These goods aren't free. They have to pay. They should be paying for them as well. So whether it's the media when they're talking about K through 12, or whether it's the Senate when they're talking about additional spending here, there, and everywhere, in the same speech, in the same sentence, at least in the same paragraph, there ought to be, here's the spending we propose, and here's how we propose to pay for it. And are you Alaskans willing to contribute in that way toward the additional spending? And they're going to get pushback. And that's good. Then we'll find a balance.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. You can find him at ak4sb.com or on Facebook at Alaskans for Sustainable Government. We are budgets. We are out of time. Hour 2, dead ahead. Sorry, Brad. We were coming up on the break there. I mean, I think you're 100% right. Let me go back to what you were talking about here just a bit ago. And that is, here's what I'm seeing in the state. And this is, again, I threw that idea against the wall here a couple of weeks ago and people lost their mind in the chat room. I'm like, maybe we should just change our perspective from no cuts to be in support of a flat income tax, period. Maybe we should just do that. Maybe instead of fighting and standing in the road and holding our fist out in front of the train that's about to run us over, we should just be like, okay, just get a tax. Let's just do that. And of course, people lost their mind. But here's what I'm seeing, and here's what I'm coming to understand. Alaskans have become so tax adverse that the whole concept is government, do whatever you want as long as you don't tax me. Live within whatever bubble of monies that you have there, including the PFD. And this is, of course, is assuming that Alaskans don't consider the PFD cut a tax. But they become so tax adverse that they're just like, whatever you want to do, government, is fine as long as you don't tax me. And that is what has allowed us to grow so much now with the POMV. And Rob Myers talked about this yesterday. The permanent fund is growing at 50% faster than the economy. So government continues to grow faster and faster because it's cumulative. It goes faster than the economy, and they could do whatever they want as long as they don't tax Alaskans. And until we have skin in that game, we're going to continue to ignore it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Michael. I mean, you see that in these interviews with parents and with administrators and others in the K through 12 discussion. It's like, we need additional goods. We don't have to pay for them. So government the state just needs to provide them. It is, to me, it is particularized on the top 20%. They don't have to pay for it. By using PFD cuts, they push the burden down to middle and lower income Alaska families, and they don't have to pay for it. So it's free goods to them. It's like it was in the 20 teens to all Alaskans, right? By bringing money out of spending, by bringing money out of savings, by using money in savings, no current Alaskans had to worry about where the money was coming from. So every year they'd say, oh, we're going to get spending under control. Give us another year and we'll get spending under control. And then the next year it'd be, oh, well, we just need to spend, we need to draw down savings a little bit more. The top 20% are still doing that. And the reason they're still doing that is because the funds we're using are taxes PFD cuts that just fall hardest on middle and lower income Alaska families. If we include them, if they have to pay also, and the way to get them to pay is through an equitable tax. If they have to pay also, we're going to have pushback. But until we have the top 20% with skin in the game, they're not going to push back. They're going to continue to say, well, Johnny needs this particular program at this particular place. I don't want to have to send him to someplace else. Just give me more BSA money or give me more grants or whatever it takes to keep this particular program going. I don't have to pay for it. It's free money. Just use it for that. And we're going to continue. You're exactly right. I mean, the top 20% is going to continue to push to continue to spend that money, to continue to take money out of the PFD all the way through the 2020s. And at the end of the 2020s, we're going to be just in the same place we were at the end of the 20 teens with savings. They're going to be gone. And then we're going to have to confront taxes. And guess what? At that point, spending will stop. Because if the top 20% have to pay for it at that point, they'll say, oh, no more spending. So now what we're getting now is we're getting additional spending because we're not confronting them with the costs. And again, and if we start doing that, then I think they'll start pushing back.
And again, this is why there's been such a push to try and get the permanent fund itself upwards of $100 million, because then they know that they are not accountable to the people at all. Rob Myers in the chat room says the POM formula draw this year alone will go up over $500 million. It'll go up from 3.2 to 3.8 billion this year. It grows, and they have no accountability to the extra money that they're going to be getting from that. And if it goes to 100 million and they're drawing a 5% POMV draw up to a 5%, they're getting $5 billion a year with no input from the people at all.
And then they'll say, well, no taxes. Then at that point, the push will be on for taxes. You're exactly right. But then the top 20% will say, oh, God, no, don't tax us. I mean, I know you've taxed middle and lower income Alaska families throughout the 2020s, but don't tax us. And then spending will stop. Well, if you want spending to stop, do that now. Make all Alaska families pay equitably now and bring it. And the top 20% will push to bring spending under control. As long as they don't have to pay for it, they're not going to push to stop it. In fact, they'll continue to push just like they are with K through 12. They'll continue to push to spend because there's no constraint on them from the additional spending.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, final thoughts here, about 45 seconds.
Well, we need to bring spending in. We need to bring revenues into this discussion, into the spending discussion. We need to bring equitable revenues into the discussion. You want more spending? Fine. Every Alaska family has to pay for it equitably, not just middle and lower income Alaska families subsidizing the top 20%. Every Alaska family has to pay for it equitably. Then I think we'll have pushback on spending. No, I don't want that. Yes, go ahead and consolidate schools. Yes, get rid of some administrators. I think that's the right thing to do because I don't want to have to pay an additional amount for it. Until we get to that point, until the top 20% have to pay for it, we're never going to get spending under control.
Alaskans, it's our guest, Brad. As always, it's educational. It's fun. It's the beatdown. Thank you for the beating today. I appreciate that. It's the truth. It's the truth bomb, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we got to go. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
World on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find the audio-only live stream, links to our social media sites where we simulcast the radio show every morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and, of course, links to our podcast, which is available wherever you find podcasts. My favorite is Spotify, if you want to find us there. Just subscribe, and you'll get the show in your inbox, your podcasting app inbox every day, and you could stay up to date and figure out what's going on. Hour 2 of the big radio show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. And we are ready to go. Coming up here shortly, Chris Story is going to be joining us, the man from Homer, who is going to come in and talk with us about positivity and pottery and life things. And I mean, I don't know what else. It's going to be good stuff. So we'll be talking with Chris Story here in just a bit about that. But before we do that, we just finished up with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. And I think we laid some things out that were kind of interesting. And I want to get your thoughts on it. I do want to talk a little bit about, let me turn this down here because this is bugging me. I do want to talk a little bit about this idea that Alaskans have become so tax adverse that they're willing to let the government do anything as long as it doesn't require any new taxation. Whatever it is, we'll talk about it as long as it requires no new taxation. We're all about that, right? I mean, that's the problem right there. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and I want to open up the phone lines to see what you guys have to say. So we're going to do that right now. The phone lines, of course, powered by our friends over there at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com. The number to call is 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. Feel free to give us a call this morning, and we're going to talk about this tax aversion, which I think has become detrimental to Alaskans' future, quite honestly. Not that I'm a fan of taxes. I mean, taxation is theft in the long run. But the question is, they're already stealing from us, so shouldn't we be able to choose our poison, so to speak? Shouldn't we be able to pick our poison in that? What is the least worst option out there? So, I mean, I kind of want to get your guys' take on this. But before we do that, I want to remind you that coming up next week is going to be the start of the 5 days of Christmas. from our friends at Satellite West. Starting next Thursday, we're going to be giving away here on the program to one lucky listener every day. Starting next Thursday, we're going to be giving away a bivy stick every day, courtesy of the Michael Duke Show, Satellite West, and your local radio stations. Now, the way you're going to be able to win this bivy stick is by going to my website at michaeldukeshow.com, clicking on the Satellite West logo up on top, and signing up to win. Now, I don't have it set up yet. It's going to be set up later today. So starting later today, you'll be able to sign up to win a chance to win a bivy stick. We've given a couple bivy sticks away before here on the program. I know a couple of the people here have received them, and this is going to be just a fun time. So we're going to be talking about that again tomorrow, but special thanks to Satellite West, who are sponsoring all 2 hours of the show every day from now until the vacation starts on the 21st, 22nd. And we're going to be giving away bivy sticks every morning starting a week from Thursday. And you're going to have to sign up to win. And somebody's going to be very happy about that. So go check it out starting later today at michaeldukeshow.com. And somebody will be a lucky recipient of a bivy stick. Well, 5 people will be the lucky recipients of bivy stick. And you can gift it to somebody else. If you don't want it yourself, but you want to gift it to somebody who's outdoorsy or spends a lot of time snow machining or out to sea or whatever, you can gift it to somebody else. That's not a problem. But 5 lucky listeners are going to win a bivy stick the 5 days of Christmas, brought to you by your friends at Satellite West. Okay. So here are my thoughts. And this is raw and unfiltered. All right. So don't hate me. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Don't hate me because I'm about to ask some questions that I think need to be answered. And I want your opinion on this. I believe that Alaskans have become so tax adverse in this state that they refuse to look at anything outside of that framework, that they are willing to let the government do anything that it wants as long as it is inside the framework of no taxation. And that is, of course, the fact that many people, including a lot of Republicans, count the PFD as, the PFD cuts as not being taxes. They are taxes. It's like the worst withholding tax you've ever seen, and it disproportionately affects the lowest 80% income, and it really affects the lower 50% income and below more than anybody else. And it has the largest impact on the Alaskan economy. More than anything, more than any other lever that they could have pulled, it has an impact. So here's my question. Should we, as citizens, address and take head on the tax adverseness that we're seeing out there right now? Should we be willing to talk about some form of taxation? Whether it's a sales tax, or whether it's a progressive income tax, or whether it's a flat tax, or whether it's a head tax, or whatever it is, shouldn't we be at least willing to have the conversation? Now, I can hear heads exploding out there right now in the chat room and everything else. I'm not saying that's the direction that we should go. I'm saying, shouldn't we at least have a conversation about it? Because here's what's happened. We have become, especially over the last 20 years, so tax adverse that we are willing to turn a blind eye to all government spending as long as it doesn't affect us in a meaningful way directly. As long as you don't, I think Randy said something earlier about, hey, don't take my money, take the other guy's money. I'll give up the PFD. I'll do whatever. Just don't take my. Here again. Shouldn't we at least have the conversation? Because I'll be honest with you, the top 20% that Brad keeps talking about, they don't even want us to be talking about it because they understand that their donor class is going to lose their minds over it. So shouldn't we at least have the conversation? Pros and cons? I mean, I'm not saying one is better than the other. Well, I mean, I think one is better than the other of all the taxation options. But shouldn't we at least have the conversation before we get there? Because let's face it, folks, with the legislative makeup we have right now, it's very likely that the PFD is going to go away in just within a few short years. Then what do we do? Because nobody's fixed the underlying problem. It's like putting an IV bag up on the thing to put more plasma into your system while you've got a femoral artery bleeding out at the bottom. You haven't fixed the problem. You could pour all the blood into it you want, but until you close up that vein, you're just bleeding right out on the floor. That's where we're at right now. Nobody's willing to fix the underlying problem. And once we run out of money, the CBR, the SBR, the PFD, once those monies are gone, the underlying problem still remains, which is an addiction to spending. Let's go over to the phones. 907-433-3150. Let's see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Randy in Fairbanks.
Randy, go ahead.
Well, I'm one of the bottom 80%ers. I'm not in the top 20%. I'm a hard worker, and I work out in the cold, and I just hate to see some of my hard-earned paycheck money go to state income taxes if it's not absolutely necessary. And I do agree with you, though. It's okay to have the conversation. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm engaging in the conversation about it. And I do not want any state income tax. Partly that's one reason, because I just work too hard for my money and I don't want it. And another thing is that if I do start paying state income tax, and at the same time you start increasing, giving out cash to people, including new arrivals and their kids and everything, then what's effectively happening is that some of my hard-earned money, when I worked out in the cold as a yard worker, yard worker, grabbing forklift or whatever I'm doing, and that means some of my money is going to people that are not earning it, and that irritates me, and I don't like that.
Well, but the money doesn't come from you, Randy. The money, that's the thing. That money doesn't come from you. It doesn't come from your hard-earned money. It comes from the earnings of the permanent fund itself. It comes from a fractional portion of the earnings. It has nothing to do with the money that you earn. And even if there was some form of income tax or sales tax, that money would still, according to statute, not come from the money that you earn and pay back to the state in taxes. That would not be it. That money would still come from the earnings of the permanent fund.
Well, I'd rather the earnings of the permanent fund be used to provide for the services that we all of Alaskans get, so that they don't have to suck out money from my hard-earned money paycheck when I go out and work out in the cold in the storage yard. So that's what I want the earnings to go through. And if there's some surplus earnings left over, then I want that dispersed as cash.
Here's the problem,
especially
Randy.
I'd like it dispersed in such a manner that it goes to long-term residents, which is why I have advocated coming up with a second PFD.
But Randy, here's the problem. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk over you here because I don't have a lot of time. But here's the thing. The problem is that what you're advocating is they should take the PFD. I mean, you may be willing to give your PFD to state services, but the rest of us want our PFD because we believe we can spend it better than those in the legislature. They already got 75% of the revenues, the royalty revenues. They got all the taxes, the corporate taxes, the property taxes. They got the fees. They got all that money, and they get 50% of the earnings of the permanent fund, that 25% that gets socked away and gets invested and rolls over. They get the 50% of those earnings anymore. The people's due is that other 50%. That's the thing. It's not, they should be able to live on the 75 plus the 50% of the earnings plus all the other taxes and everything else. That's the thing. They're not living within their means, Randy.
Are you saying the legislators, the 60 legislators, are getting all this money and they're all multimillionaires and we need to get some of that money back from them?
Randy,
I think
come on. You know that's stupid. That's not what I said, and you know it's not what I said, and you're making a false argument. You know what I mean by that is the government, the legislature's in control of the money. You know I was not saying that this was going straight to the legislators. Please, let's not play stupid.
You know, I agree with you. I don't think you would think that either. But my point is that this money that they, quote unquote, they get is not going to Brazil or Pakistan. It's just being used right here in Alaska as services for us. And I'm all for trimming certain services and getting rid of inefficiencies. And that's what we need to do. And then when we do that, when we work hard to get those efficiencies, then that yields more of a surplus, which can yield to a higher cash payout for all of us Alaskans. So instead of just services, we can have more extra cash. I'm all for that.
Giving them more money does not cause them to be more efficient. Giving them more money does not cause them to be more budgetarily conscious. That's part of the problem. That's one of the reasons why I've been opposed to a tax in so many ways, because I figure if we just give them more money, they'll find ways to spend it. And that's the problem. Your argument has always been, well, give them more money and they'll eventually figure out how to be efficient with it. That's the past performance is indicative of future results. If you've got somebody who's who's a shopaholic who just can't stop buying off of QVC or Amazon or something, and they got a spare bedroom full of stuff that they haven't even opened yet, but they just want to keep spending, you don't just keep paying off their credit card and giving them a blank credit card every month because they're just going to do it. You got to start beast, and that's what needs to happen here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you, Randy, for your call. We got to continue here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Chris Story is our guest up next for our weekly life coaching lesson. We're going to be talking about that here in just a moment. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Story is about to be, Chris Story is about to be our guest here in just a hot second. Let me I got all my stuff here all laid out. Cables coiled everywhere. Can't wait. I got the new mixer I'll put it in. It's all Bluetooth. I don't have to worry about all these cables and stuff. All right. We're going to get to that. Okay. So we're all ready now. I think we're all ready to do our thing. What was that? Anchorage police shots fired. What? Sorry, I just saw an alert come through on my phone here. Here we go. Anchorage police shots fired at Fred Meyer, Walmart, and Muldoon. Oh, that was yesterday. Why did it just show up now? Okay. I don't know. This is why I hate Twitter. Okay. What do we got? Randy. Let me go back up here and see what you guys have been talking about. Most people who don't want new taxes are not ignoring the fact that the state spends too much. No one wants to give the state more power to keep spending money. You can't feed a drug addict more drugs. I don't know what the solution is at this point. Rob says, the permanent fund is a trust fund. Would you rather have the trust fund citizens or trust fund government? I think that's the ultimate question there. Gary says, you will never be able to convince people that the PFD is a tax. I am for doing away with it completely, the PFD. It's always an uncertain amount of income. Until the state cleans up what it has, all funding should stop. Almost dead last in education, but Juno's drag story time for kids gets high marks for diversity. When the government takes money from the people to provide government services, we call it a tax. I and most other people don't have a problem accepting this. However, I and most other people do have a problem with the government taking money from every man, woman, and child in this state to maintain a bloated state government while outright lying about it, bragging that we don't tax you. Stop peeing on my foot and telling me it's raining. Stealing the PFD is taxation. Yes. There are adverse effects for taxes. However, you and I are tax adverse. Oh, I thought you were talking about adverse impacts on the economy. All right. Chaco's correcting my grammar on YouTube. Now they want ours too. Exactly. That's the thing. They got their share. They got their 50% share. And now they want our shares as well. That's what they want. Our shares as well. All right. So we're Chris Story is here with us. Chris Story is here with us. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. I'm on top of the world. You can't drag me down.
No, I wouldn't want to. That would be depressing. I mean, I could if I tried, because I can do anything I set my mind to, but I would not do that because that's not who I am. Hey, quick question. You got your Roadcaster thing. Was that the regular one, or was that the 2? Was that the Pro 2, or was that the regular Pro?
I got it. Let's see, almost a year ago. So I don't believe it's the 2, but it is Bluetooth, and I love it.
Yeah,
is that what you're going to?
I got the Roadcaster Pro 2 here a while ago because I was looking at it, and it's got a lot of stuff packed into it, including some really great AFIX processors and stuff for the microphones.
It's phenomenal.
Sounds really
absolutely.
Good. But yeah, the Bluetooth feature was really neat.
That's how I do all of my pre-recorded interviews now, is through that Roadcaster. Anything I'm doing that's strictly going straight to podcast, like the Backyard Millionaire podcast, I just do it straight through the Roadcast. I don't use my PV board or any of the equipment down at the studio. So it's phenomenal. Plus, I did just some broadcasts from Arizona using it, connecting back up to the station with Bluetooth, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
best on the road show I've ever done.
Yeah, no, well, wait till you get a portable Comrex unit, and then you'll be really set.
Exactly.
That's what I use.
You'll never know where. I could be living in Louisiana.
Exactly. I know, exactly. You could be in Louisiana broadcasting in Alaska and saying that you're an Alaskan. Wait a minute. Let's get to it here, Chris. Hold the line. Common Sense Radio. All right, it's that time of week where once a week we bring in what we like to call him the guru of positivity. I don't know what that means. I just made all those words up. Join positivity, pottery, realty. It's all the things that he does, and radio, of course. Author, speaker. Man, he's like a Renaissance man. I don't know. I just picture him smoking a cigar and sitting back there and stroking his beard and saying, pontificating on all his wisdom. He comes on every week to talk with us about all the good stuff and give us our life coaching lesson. Good morning, Mr. Story. They call him Mr. Story. What's going on, sir?
I'm very appreciative of the kind words. It rambled the body of an Olympic gymnast.
It's got the body of a 12-year-old girl. I mean, yes, an Olympic gymnast. That's exactly it. What's
and I keep it in the trunk of my car. Oh, okay.
Bump. All right, Chris. We didn't get a chance to chat right before the break. So, what is your topic for today? What kind of enlightenment are you hitting us with today?
Failure. No, but rehearsal. So, thinking in terms of rehearsing for an eventual reversal or failure, because we know it's going to happen at some point. I want you to be prepared for it. That's all.
So, failure. Or it sound like the uplifting talk that I was hoping for today.
Optimism as a life, a way of thinking, a way of moving through the world. However, it's like a muscle. You got to build it. You got to develop it. You have to anticipate also, though, that there will be challenging times, difficulties, obstacles, things are going to spring up. So better be prepared. I was a pilot when he was 18. And it was on third year, unbeknownst to the student, the instructor killed the engine and said, "Hey, we've had an engine failure. What are you going to do?" And they went into a stall. Anyway, went through the whole process. The guy finally turned the engine back on, took back control of the plane, and said, "I will not license you until you're prepared for every single thing that could possibly happen to you." And it just got me to thinking, visualization works both ways. It's for what you want. You can visualize what it is you want in your life, what you want to become, what you want to accomplish. That's excellent. It's excellent preparation. We know that Olympians, we know that people use this at the highest levels of NASA, all kinds of institutions. And it's not just woo anymore. However, ought we not be prepared for a reversal, be it health, wealth, war? We need to rehearse the response in advance of the adversity, of the reversal, so that we can basically be prepared for whatever can come at you. Because I don't want to spend too much time there. It's a little bit like Jerry Seinfeld told Costanza of cleavage. He said, it's like looking at the sun. You take a peek and you look away. It's the same thing with reversal rehearsal. You don't linger there. You don't want to spend too much time there. So I do have a formula that I think can solve that, because I know you were going to ask that, Michael. How much time do we spend looking at the reversal?
Right. Well, that's exactly. I was just thinking that. I mean, you don't want to focus on it, but at the same time, well, this kind of goes back to the old adage, which I've advocated for years, which is prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and all your surprises will be happy ones. It's not to dwell on the potential for catastrophic failure, but you should at least acknowledge that it exists, make a contingency plan, and then move on. Don't focus on it. Just look at it for a minute. Here's what I need to do. If this happens, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, now I move on and focus on what I really want, right?
And I'll give you a real life example from my real estate brokerage. And from the beginning, we've done what we call postmortems on a transaction that failed or something that went wrong. And it's not to relive the failure or to be punitive. It's literally just to say, okay, what can we learn from this? What's the story we can take and tell it going forward as a cautionary tale if need be? And how can we handle an obstacle such as this into the future? And so by re-examining and just spending a moment there, sort of reliving that moment, what actually went wrong just before impact, what happened here? And then we can look at it. So I think the ultimate plan for reversal rehearsal is a 90-10 approach. Spend 90% of your time focusing on what it is you want, the things that go right, and planning for the future and planning for success and victory and everything you do, health, wealth, happiness, all of it. And then 10% of your time should be spent planning for the reversal. Imagine you were on board, I don't remember, was it American Airlines? Which one? Captain Sullivan landed in the Hudson River a number of years ago.
Right.
I mean, thank God he had planned for every kind of reversal that could have happened. And he actually said of that moment that he'd spent his entire career in his illustrious career as an airline pilot planning for just that moment. He didn't know it, but that's what his entire career had been spent for. So I think taking the 90-10 approach, 90% of our time should be planning for victory and winning, and 10% we should spend in a contingency effort, like, okay, what if this happens? What will we do? What shall we do? And I'll tell you another real life example, and I probably drove people nuts in 2020, 21, saying, oh, you got COVID. Oh, tell me what you did. What did you do? What did you take? What worked? What didn't work? And I did a deep dive analysis. Every single person that I talked to that had it, I would just interrogate and find out what did they do, what worked well. And I had my own contingency plan set in place that I had ivermectin on hand, hydroxychloroquine. I had a clear path to getting monoclonal, everything I particularly wanted, I had set in place. So when it happened, boom, I was ready to go. But I didn't spend my whole life there. I just spent about 10% of my time.
You didn't ask me what I did when I got COVID. I mean,
Well, yeah, but I've already had it twice.
Oh, yeah.
I was a two-time loser by the time you rolled around with. And you're welcome very much for Omicron having filtered through our bodies and
Yes.
finally mutated to a head cold. You're welcome, Michael.
Yeah, no, I mean, finally, I dodged the bullet on that for almost 3 years. So, I mean, some zinc and lots of sleep, and that fixed me right up. So, I mean, my taste even came back after about 8-9 days. So I'm feeling pretty
I'm going
good.
to be honest with you. Part of it was that it was long in the tooth. The other part is I just didn't care.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I figured that probably was it.
I'm kidding, Michael. Somebody's got to keep you humble here.
I know. Well, no, it's exactly.
We all
somebody
care.
does. Look, I think that this is an important piece of advice. We talk, on this program continuously about positivity, keeping your goals in mind, doing that kind of things. But we all understand that failure is a part of that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the whole Edison thing. It took 10,000 different permutations of the light bulb before the first one lit and stayed lit. 10,000 failure. And then when he was asked about it, they said, well, that's a failures. That's a lot of failures. He goes, well, it's not really a failure. It's just I found 10,000 ways it didn't work. But I eventually found it. And so we understand, and it's not, we don't avoid it, but we don't really talk about it a lot. But failure is a part of these processes. Success is bred upon failure. And so we at least have to acknowledge it. And again, if we have here's the thing, going into failure with no idea what you're going to do is crushing, right? It just scatters you and it takes up all your focus and you're absorbed by the crisis of the moment. But if you've at least gamed it out and thought about what if this happens? What if this happens? What will I do? And you've at least thought about it and put it into at least a 1-sentence or 1-paragraph solution for whatever the issue may be, not focusing on it, but at least you'll be able to deal with it. And so failure is an important component of success in the long run, right?
I agree. Absolutely. You're going to trip. You're going to fall along the way, and you might as well be prepared. It's great having some Band-Aids on hand before you cut yourself. And that's just preparation. I don't spend my whole day thinking about the size of Band-Aid I need when I sever the tip of my pinky and put the severed digit on ice. But you think about it for a minute. You think, okay, well, what would I do? And then you spend the rest of your time aiming towards what it is you want. And I will tell you, there are times that I have failed and looked back later and went, oh, that's the best thing that ultimately ever could have happened. As a result of this, I then what's that game you used to play when you were in your misspent youth? Pinball. It's like bang. I never would have predicted by bouncing off of this obstacle, it would propel me into this lane. And now I love it over here. But yeah, just spend a small amount of time thinking about what went wrong, what might go wrong into the future, and how you can handle it. Just having a bit of a rehearsal into your life will allow you to withstand. Let's say, for example, that something happens that you just couldn't possibly think that this would ever happen to you. You might not be able to think about every scenario, and nor should you probably, but just having a plan for how will you handle adversity and knowing that it could be coming, you'll be probably much better able to handle anything that comes at you, whether you could have imagined it or not.
Chris Story is our guest. ilovehomeralaska.com is his website. You could listen to him on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the stations down in the peninsula, KPEN. At 1 o'clock, he talks about realty and positivity and all kinds of stuff. Chris, holiday season's coming up, and I know that you've got some perfect gift ideas for the person in your life who's looking for a little direction or maybe wants to do some wealth planning or whatever else. Tell us a little bit about what you got, or somebody who just wants a little adventure in their life. Give me some thoughts here.
I just got a text from Mother Dukes. Chris, you better mention beard curler coffee, or I'll pull the plug. Huh? Okay, thanks, Terry.
I don't know.
Aside from drinking your beard curler coffee, I just gave a copy away of a book called Born to Live, which I absolutely love. And this is a book, speaking of rehearsal, and I didn't expect to say this today about the book, but I will say it is about a time in my life. I wrote it. It's a fictionalized story. It ends well. Spoiler alert, it ends well. But it is a story of a young guy, a salesman who's going through like the worst time in his life imaginable. And then it gets a little bit worse. And then there's some lessons that are taught along the way. It's a great and wonderful story. If you think for a minute that you know somebody who might be going through a bit of a reversal or a difficult time, or you just want to share a really good, feel-good, amazing story that's a quick read. Most people tell me they could sit down and read it in a single sitting or maybe 2 or 3. And And I love that book, Born to Live. It's if I do nothing else, I feel like that I put that out into the world, and I absolutely love it.
Right. Of course, you've also got the book, The Backyard Millionaire, which is a great fictionalized story, but also with a purpose. Talking to people about the power of basically setting their own goals and doing their own thing, and the power of owning real estate, which sounds a little dull, but in the long run, the story is great. So, I mean, it's all parables, right? It's all parables. And then, of course, you've got your Jacob Mann series with The Making of Man, and the new one, which is in editing right now. I don't know, is it going to come out before Christmas? The Watchmen, is it going to come out in time for folks to be able to get it for Christmas?
I hope so, Michael. I don't know if I can get it back from the editor in time and get it to print, but I sure hope so. But in the meantime, The Making of Man that you did for me on Audible, but also is in paperback and ebook, is a great place to start. And then the next one, if not by Christmas, shortly after the first of the year, depending on how the editor does. But just remember, Jacob Mann, every man wants to be him, and every woman wants to be with him. So this is all I'm going to say about that until you read the book.
Oh my God. Chris Story. You can find him again at ilovehomeralaska.com, where you can find links to his books, his radio show, his daily thoughts on top of the world, his podcast, and a Renaissance man, a long time coming. Chris, thanks for coming on board this morning and
yeah, I'm glad you're alive and you survived.
Well, good. Me too. I mean, it's a plus. It's a plus. All right, folks, we got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show continues. One final segment. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we'll talk about something. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, I guess we're finishing up with Chris' story. I mean, I guess I should have planned for my eventual death by COVID, Chris, but didn't happen. So, I guess it all...
We're all grateful for that. We're all better off. And I have to tell you, I was in Soldotna on Friday, picking up a beautifully smoked prime rib from Echo Lake Meats on K Beach Road, EchoLakeMeats.com. There, just did a commercial. Anyway, so I've stopped into a little gas station somewhere in Kenai. I don't really know or care. And I met this wonderful woman, though. I believe her name was Jeannie. And she said I was walking in to use the restroom. Anyway, she saw me and she said, "Are you Chris?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, and this is a quote, Michael, "I'm a Michael Duke's follower." And I said, "So am I." Anyway, she shook my hand and said it was nice to meet me, but mainly because of my affiliation with you. So I just wanted you to know you have legions of fans or followers everywhere.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I love talking with people. I love the people, people of the peninsula really embraced the show when it first arrived down there. I guess we're going on 3-4 years now. I guess almost 4 years. And the people down there really embraced it and seemed to love it. And I really appreciate that. I love the can-do spirit down there. I just love the people down there. So yeah, I'm glad, and I'm just grateful to you for coming on the show every week, free of charge, and talking with folks about a little bit of everything, positivity mostly, but a little bit of everything. And I know we have talked about it, and maybe folks in the chat room could sound off on this, whether or not that they are interested to hear some of Chris' political views, because Chris and I talk about, it's politics is not necessarily his forte, but he's got thoughts. I mean, contrary to popular belief, Chris Story does have thoughts.
Right.
And
it's not just a pretty face.
I know. And so we've talked about whether or not we should, once a month or every other week or something, have Chris on for an extra segment where he beats the hell out of us over politics and then soothes our wounds with PMA after that. And we've been discussing that. And first he was a little reticent, but then I beat him down and he said, maybe. So anyway, folks, if you want to hear more Chris Story, and not just about positivity, but obviously about about the hot topic of the day or what's going on in the legislature or the state or whatever, let me know in the chat room that you would like to hear more Chris. And we'll see if we can talk him into coming on every few weeks to talk about that. I mean, I appreciate your insights, regardless of whether I agree with them or not. And
sometimes we don't believe it or not.
Yeah, sometimes Chris and I are like at odds over certain things, like but for the most part, I mean, that's just on politics stuff. Because with everything else, I mean, he is my guru. He is my mentor of positivity. So we love to have him on board with that. But I thought it would be interesting to see the other side of Chris' story, the darker side, where Mr. Walker becomes Mr. Wheeler, motorist, and we could do that. But it'd just be fun, I think. Chris,
you are a nerd. I love that.
I am a nerd for sure. Did you get all your Christmas shopping done? That was my big question that I should be asking you.
Yes and no. I'm actually making a board game for Christmas gifts this year, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'm waiting on a couple of pieces to come in to finalize that, but otherwise, I think so. I haven't figured out what to get you yet, but we'll see.
A board game? Yeah, I already have a cupboard full of arsenic. I don't need any more. Thank you. A board game? I'm interested.
Yes.
I'm interested. I want to hear more. What kind of board game are you making?
Well, it's about optimism, believe it or not, and living on top of the world. The board game is called Born to Live.
No kidding. I mean, branding. You got the branding down for sure. Born to Live.
That's right.
So I want to hear more about it. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And of course, those will be available on your website shortly, I'm sure.
I hope so. We'll see how it goes. These are prototypes.
Chris, thanks, brother. I appreciate you coming on board. Love you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Chris Story, our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. And why not? I love it. Michael says in YouTube, he says, hell yeah. It's Chris Story. Hell yeah. So, of course, we want more. We just, of course we want that. Boy, you guys fell silent there for a little bit. It's like everybody's just quiet. We don't want to talk about anything. Maybe I should just get, hey, let's support taxes. Let's get you guys cranked up in the room. Let's tax everybody. What do you think? Good idea? Oh, wait, this is already being done. They're taxing everybody by taking their PFD. Let's tax everybody more. How about that? Let's tax everybody more. All right. I guess I will turn the phone lines back on. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. This is one of those moments where I'm just like, whatever. Got about 20 seconds, so let me rejoin here. Oh, look at that. Peeked everything out when I was looking. Boom. Let's get the job done. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and share, like and share. Here we go. Well, okay. Chris is making a board game for Christmas. I mean, that's industrious. He's seriously being industrious right now. I'm going to do a board game for Christmas. I mean, I'm just not normal. You're normal. I'm not knitting you socks or anything. I'm going to make you a board game for Christmas. I'm all down with that. I'm totally down with that. All right. So one final segment here on the program. Tomorrow on the show, we are expecting a discussion with State Senator Mike Shower, who is going to come on with us and hopefully give us some more insight into the election and the formation of the Senate majority and what he expects in the coming year. What he expects to see in the coming year. I guess I'll lay out quickly. Now, phone lines are open. I guess I should tell you that to begin with. And again, special thanks to our friends over there at Satellite West for sponsoring both hours of the program today, no matter where you are in the state, from Chickaloon to Chicken to Chignik to Chena, wherever you are. They have got the device and the technology to keep you in contact, whether it's via text message or a phone call or email or just surfing the internet. Satellite West has got you covered. You can find them at satellitewest.com. Satellitewest.com. And so we say a special thank you to them for sponsoring the program and being the sponsors of the 5 days of Christmas, which is coming up next week. Starting next Thursday, we're going to be giving away a bivy stick, one a day, every day for 5 days. It's the 5 days of Christmas, courtesy of the Michael Duke Show and Satellite West and your local radio station. Special thanks to them as well. So more details will be up on the website later today. Website will be up and live later today, and that's where you'll go to sign up for it. Go to michaeldukeshow.com and look for the Satellite West logo up on top, and it's the 5 days of Christmas. Okay, so here's what's coming. I've got one line on hold. I'm going to get you here in just a second, caller. Don't go anywhere. Here's what's coming. I fully anticipate that we're going to see a dividend of $500 or less this next year. I fully anticipate that they will increase the funding to education. I don't know if it's to the $1,000 level that somebody said earlier in the chat room, that the BSA this next year is going to be upwards of $1,000. The current BSA is just slightly over $500, so that would be a doubling of the BSA. So I don't know if it's going to be that high, but I think the BSA is definitely going to increase. And I think you're going to see a strong discussion about a return to defined benefits programs for retirements. And I think those right there, those three things will probably spell some serious doom for the state in the future. Because again, as I was talking about earlier, it's like we have never addressed the root problem. We have treated the symptoms of the disease, but we have never addressed the root problem. The root problem is we have an addiction to spending in the state. That's the problem. We have an addiction to spending in the state, but we've never addressed that problem. Instead, we've just thrown money at it and continued. And I think that's going to be the way we're going to move forward. Eventually, you run out of money. That's what happens. Now, it took us a while to get here, but eventually you're going to do it, and you're going to see the PFD dwindle. And then, my friends, we're all going to be facing taxes anyway. So there you go. That's what my thought is on this. Let's go over to the phones and see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. This is in Kodiak.
Good morning, Carlene.
Good morning. Funny thing, but I woke up thinking about the word contingency. Monday morning contingency. I meant to look it up, and I finally did during your break, and it said a possible but unlikely or unplanned event, a possibility that must be planned for a future emergency. And then last night I watched Valkyrie with Tom Cruise about Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg. They tried to it was the 15th attempt to overthrow Hitler at the end of the war. And they had a contingency plan. And that's what's come to mind a number of times before your motivational speaker brought it up today. But on other shows, Dr. Anna Barrett on Christian Financial Concepts has been talking about another collapse, a crash, and just not to scare people, but we need to have a couple of months provisions because that new currency is going to come in also. So I couldn't sleep, so I've been listening to old cassettes. And Michelle Bachman, April 24th, 2022, talking about these same things. And then she was on again on Sunday on the Jan Markell show. And then on the Tony Perkins show, it was on Saturday, but it was Tuesday's repeat. And the person talking said that a week and a half ago, the president made a speech about reparations to other countries because of our carbon footprint. We'll have to be taxed for our fuel and gas because of causing other people to be living, with what's going on in Africa, people moving from country to country, no food, starvation.
Right.
So we're going to have to pay for that. So our taxes, I think we should do it organically, just that the PFD is going to go away. So be prepared. You said maybe a $500 one this year, and then it's going to go away. And it just feels like a slow slide into socialism. That's the thought that came the day after the election.
Yeah.
So we just need to be prepared and do the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
And not to be frightened, but be prepared.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the preparedness brings, peace. That's the thing. That's one of the old adages that I used to live by. Preparedness brings peace. So no matter what you're doing, whether it's food prep or money prep or whatever, though that preparedness, those steps that you take to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, always bring peace of mind. And I agree with you, Carly, and I think that's important. Thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. We got another call here on hold. Let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's Charles in Fairbanks.
Good morning, Charles. What's on your mind?
I expect we'll see a Wolverine caucus. I use that word because of a gluttonous nature. Gulo is the name for the Wolverine in the Latin. Gulo. There's a word gulosity. The politicians are gluttonous with other people's money. So good morning.
Good morning.
Have a good day.
Good morning, Charles. Thank you for your call. The Wolverine. See, the problem is that when you said Wolverine party, all I could think of was Wolverines, from Red Dawn. I'd rather see a Wolverine party that came in and cleaned house. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. Look, I mean, as Brian said earlier in the chat room today, money, one hell of a drug. That's the problem. And the problem with OPM, other people's money, is that eventually you run out of it. And that's kind of where we're at in this state. I mean, we burned through what, 14, 15, 16 billion dollars in savings. We avoided the boogeyman in the room, which of course is the unquenchable thirst for spending. We avoided that. We avoided talking about that or addressing that at all by simply covering it up with the spending of the monies that we had. Now we've drained the CBR. Now we've drained the SBR. Now we're attaching the PFD, and we're continuing to attach the PFD and tax it. And eventually that too will go away because we have failed to address the boogeyman in the room. The 8 million pound elephant sitting in the middle of your living room is the fact that the legislature cannot control their spending. And in fact, they look you in the eye and say, we couldn't cut one single farthing more. That's what they tell us. I mean, he's right there. It's Bert Stedman. It's all the whole crew there basically saying the same thing. I got time for 30 seconds here for another caller. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, thanks, Michael. This is Rob in Fairbanks.
Hey, Rob, quickly.
Hey, this PFD is going to run for a while because we got lots of oil. This overspending, there ought to be some rooftop boats on this thing, Well, but anyways, you have a good day, and thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I mean, it may look like a lot of money in the long run, but in the scheme of things, it's really not that much. And it wouldn't take much for them to suck up all of that money and more. But we got to go. Thanks for coming in. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. Okay. Okay. Well, good morning, folks. Thank you for being part of it today. As always, I appreciate you joining us. There's 35 of you or so here between all the chats. Thank you for coming in. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow on the program. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Michael Duke Show. If you want to help support the show, that's what just funded this whole studio upgrade, is support from folks like you. And it's just going to keep getting better from here. I got a new camera I'm putting up here shortly. All right, appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming in. We will see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slime internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Goodbye.